So Vele, Tipton, Olave, Shaheed, and Cooks. So that's 5 guys right there, right? Vele, Tipton, Olave, and Cooks. That's 5. The Saints ain't gonna be keeping 6 guys. But it's interesting that, with him being here now, does this mean something is going, does Cooks not make the team? Do the Saints still keeps Cooks if that is indeed the case? Because they need somebody to be a special teams person. I know Cooks ain't gonna be the guy. Does that put Cooks on the bubble? By getting Vele here and pushing Brandin Cooks to the 4th wide receiver now, and Brandin Cooks doesn't play special teams, this could possibly put Brandin Cooks. Now, we'll see how it goes because Mason Tipton, in my opinion, Vele, Tipton, Olave, Rashid, and Cooks, that's 5. Somebody got to return the kicks, and that might be Dante Pettis. We'll see. We'll see how it all goes, man, with that guy here, because he's obviously seen as a top 3 wide receiver for the Saints receiving room. That pushes Cooks down. So we'll see what goes on there. Just interesting, just throwing that around, but yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones already in the street. The Saints had to make room for Devaughn Vele to join the team. All right, anyway, man, let's keep this thing moving along, man. And shout out to Devaughn Vele and welcome to the Saints, man. We give him, a round of applause and welcome the wide receiver, Devaughn Vele. That's right, brother. Welcome to the Black and Gold. Big wide receiver, Chris Hall, and we talked about it, man. And listen, I know it's the picks and all this kind of stuff, but the guy, 6'5" guy with 4.47 speed, we always wanted to see what that big possession speedster would look like next to a healthy Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, right? We always want to see that, and we'll see what that looks like, man. We're going to get a chance to look at that, man. We might get a chance to look at it on Saturday. Red T said Cooks is wide receiver now. Yeah, LOL. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't. And listen, bro. I think Cooks. Man, listen. Let me get their depth chart. I think Cooks is in trouble, man. I think Brandin Cooks is in trouble. This wide receiver is bad news for Brandin Cooks. No doubt about it to me. You see, the Saints have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and then they got Cooks. They hadn't changed this unofficial thing. But you can see Devaughn Vele's name added with Chris Olave. Then I think, and like I said, if it came down to 5, he's going to make it because they traded for him. We know Olave's going to make it, obviously. Rashid's going to make it, obviously. Mason Tipton should make it. And me saying I think Dante Pettis should make it. But Brandin Cooks is, like I said, he's a veteran, but he's the smallest wide receiver there. I think he's shorter than Mason Tipton, I want to say. What is he, 5'10", 190? Yep, 5'10", 190. He in trouble. 5'10", 190, and I think Mason is 6 feet tall, I won't say. Mason is 6 feet. No, he's 5'11" too. He's 5'11" and 5'10". But Mason Tipton got the glow, man. Mason Tipton has the glow. I think Cooks is in trouble, man, because they ain't going to keep 6 wide receivers. This trade was bad news for him. Now, either you could probably see the Saints might be looking at trading him. We'll see how it goes, man. But, we talked about the Saints. Didn't we talk about the Saints offense not making enough moves like the defense was making? Remember we talked about that? And I kept talking about how schizophrenically different the Saints defense has been in terms of it going out, getting talent. Like if Isaiah Foskey, the slow man, wasn't handling his business, they brought the kid in from, what's his name? Martin from the Browns. Remember, they brought him in here. They brought Jonah Williams in here. They brought Chris Rump II in here, who've been balling. So the Saints go out and they bring people in. When Tyrann Mathieu retired, the Saints instantaneously brought Julian Blackmon in here, and he'd been just knocking shit out the park ever since. You see what I'm saying? They did a stellar job, even from the draft standpoint, with Danny Stutzman, Jonas Sanker, Quincy Riley. These guys are potential starters. Like the Saints got a flock of different players that are potential starters. So the defense was adding pieces to it, and the defense was kicking the offense ass all preseason and training camp this year. Because they need somebody, they go out and get it. What's your boy, the defensive lineman that used to play for the Vikings? What's his name? Jonathan Bullard. They got Jonathan Bullard. They brought in Jaden Peavy, who's the undrafted Jeremiah Martin. They traded for Devon Gacho. They bring in, they drafted the guys that they drafted. They brought in, what's his name? Chris Rump, Jonah Williams. They bring these guys in. They improve the defense. They're not sitting around waiting for guys to get better. The man was proactive. Now the offense is starting to get that move. With the the last 2 trades of the last 2 weeks have been offensive trades. They got a center. They traded for a defensive man for an offensive man. They turn around and use 2 picks to get a wide receiver that's going to be considered a starter. So the Saints turn around and got a Fortnite, even though people might have criticisms of Luke Fortner. You can't tell me Luke Fortner is not better than Will Clapp. I mean, I'm like, well, come on, man. What we talking here? It's not like he gonna be worse than what Will Clapp is. Will Clapp is kind of on teetering down on his career. He wasn't quite the same guy. It's the same. If anything, you'll say it's a wash, or he might just be a tad better than Will Clapp. So I mean, you can consider that somewhat of an upgrade. And then the picks to get a first string or potential starting wide receiver in Vele to go along with Olave and Shaheed. So that's what I was saying, man. And now the rumor mill is saying the Saints are looking for a running back. You see what I'm saying? That's what they're saying. The potentialist is what Deanna Rossini is saying. The Saints rumor mill to be looking for a running back. So the offense all of a sudden in the last couple of days before the last preseason, all of a sudden the offense is catching the defense vibes. Now they won't add all these people all of a sudden, and people that we've been telling them to get. We saying you need a big ass wide receiver. You got these guys ain't tall, too short. Now they got you one. We need better backups. So they say, okay, let me go get Fortner. We lose Clapp, let's get Fortner. You got to consider that an upgrade, can't you? So they're starting to get more proactive in their approach, getting ready before the regular season, which is interesting. That's my thing. And that's the reporter was saying, where was that energy? Where was that that vibe and that energy earlier? Because that you always needed that. You always needed a better backup center. You always needed a big wide receiver. What all of a sudden changed? You see what I'm saying? What changed for them to say, okay, and make 2 trades in 2 weeks for stuff that we've been saying, hey, man, you need to get that shit? What changed that drastically for them to be, oh, shit? You see what I'm saying? It wasn't. Was it just watching the preseason games? Because that's what I was telling people. The man don't know the team like you know the team. But sooner or later, he going to come around to how you think. You see what I'm saying? He doesn't know the team like you know the team. He's still figuring them out. He's still evaluating these guys. But sooner or later, he's going to come around to your way of thinking because your way of thinking is correct. Saints need a big wide receiver in there for the red zone, a big guy next to Chris Olave. They need better centers or better backups behind the starters. He's still evaluating. So expect more things to change.